Hello and welcome to the Calmcast, a time to feel calm and think clearly. I'm Claire Downham, the Queen of Calm, a transformational life coach. I was a burnt out head teacher who finally made the journey to calm after years of trying, and I want to prevent you from having to do the same. The Calmcast is a series of short explorations, gently guiding you back to your natural state, which is calm and clarity. Just listen like you would listen to music, with an open mind and curiosity. There's nothing else to do. Now let's relax into today's episode. So today's exploration is around noticing, because I've become aware, which is a bit like noticing, isn't it? And conscious, which is also like noticing, that it seems that that is a phenomenal tool. I really like that word, but I'm going to go with it. A phenomenal tool for change. But it has to come from a particular direction, a particular understanding about how life works. It has to come from a place of understanding the connection between our thoughts and feelings and behaviours. So let's start by exploring that. When you have a feeling in your body, an emotional response, a tightening, a heart pounding, an unease around your shoulders, whatever it is that you're feeling in your body, an emotional response, knowing that that is 100% of the time always coming from thought has to be the starting point for the noticing. And understanding that fundamentally that is where your behaviour comes from. For example, if I have an angry feeling that seems to be coming from the behaviour of another person, if I think it comes from there, I'm going to do something to that person. I'm going to shout at them, send them a rude message, tell them to off, whatever. I'm going to say something unpleasant or do something in an attempt to make them stop that behaviour so that I can feel better. When I know that feeling is coming from my thinking about their behaviour, which is fundamentally completely different, there's something different. There's knowing that you've got thinking that might not be helpful right now. And then there's a bit of space. That's what occurs to me anyway, to allow some space. And then from that place of noticing that feeling and knowing, oh, I've got some really interesting thinking about this situation, this person, this circumstance, whatever it is. I've got some interesting thinking here, not anybody else. Then we can get really, really curious. We can ask from that place of noticing the feeling and going, oh, hello, what's this feeling telling me today? Your system's so clever. It's tapping on the shoulder and going, excuse me, just to let you know, feeling is telling you your thinking is off. And then you can get curious. There's an exploration there. There's an exploration around, what am I believing right now that isn't true? So an example of that is future thinking. If you're thinking about the future and worrying about the future and you have an uncomfortable feeling, and that's telling you that you're caught up in believing something that isn't true, because the future isn't true, of course. And that feeling is telling you your thinking about the future is nonsense. And that's why it feels terrible, because your system's always telling you about what's going on in here. Questions like, what is the story I'm telling? If you're in somebody else's head telling a story about what they're thinking and why they're behaving the way they're behaving and all of that, which I never do, she said, nodding her head. I never do that. Then it's creating an uncomfortable feeling. Then it's just telling you. You're making up a story about somebody else's thinking, which isn't true because you can't know what somebody else is thinking. And then from that place of noticing and that place of inquiry, it seems to me that there's a consideration of what behaviour will be helpful. If we think the feeling's coming from the outside, the behaviour that we do will be based on trying to get the outside to stop being like that. Person stop behaving, circumstance change. It's why some people move from job to job to job to job because they think they're trying to find the feelings on the outside. When we realise from that inquiry that, our thinking's a bit off, we're caught up in a story, we're believing something that's not true, the behaviour that occurs to do then is fundamentally different. For me, and this is not how I'm telling you to live your life, this is just me explaining what I do, most of the time it involves doing nothing and waiting, because the thinking will pass and the feeling will pass, and then something much clearer and much more helpful will probably occur. For you, it might be something different. Sometimes I do other things. Sometimes I try and shake it off or walk about or whatever. But most of the time, it occurs to me to pause. Now, this noticing and this questioning and this curiosity is super, super helpful. But here's a few things to just watch out for. The first thing is judgment. I feel like if everybody could just see that nothing they're being or thinking or doing or feeling is wrong, then that would be transformational. I think we think when we come from the place of wrongification of it, that we will change faster, but that just isn't how it works. You will have noticed that in yourself. Feeling guilty about things, thinking that you've done something wrong, beating yourself up. I mean, that just, I think, just tends to lead to more of the same. It doesn't fundamentally change us, really. Or it changes us in a way it's painful, and nobody wants to do that, really. So yeah, judgment and wrongification, watch out for those in this exploration when you're noticing. And noticing, you are going to sometimes totally believe the outside in paradigm, that the outside world is creating your feelings. But when you're in this phase of noticing that is the starting point. Noticing that you've got caught up in a story that's saying you are having, your feelings are coming from the outside world. And the other thing that when we're noticing a feeling and we're getting into an exploration and we're getting into questioning, that there's nothing there about the past, about you being damaged or broken or not functioning properly in some way. That's not what's going on. That's not helpful. And what I'm noticing about noticing is where I bring some awareness to an area of life that I think I would prefer was working a little better for me, that I was in a better place around, not from a place of judgment, but really from a place of, I guess, self-love, I guess, self-acceptance. It seems to me that just by getting curious about what is going on, what is the story, what is the belief I've got, what do I think is not true, is really, really interesting. I'll tell you just one quick story about that. I've been planning an event to put out on a significant charity day in the UK called Red Nose Day. And I had this inspired idea to do it, and then I spent a lot of time trying to talk myself out. Nobody will turn up. Nobody want to do this. I was able to just notice the story that I'd made up about the future, and thus, the event will be shared very shortly. But just noticing how how we can talk ourselves out of things that might be wonderful. So yeah, noticing without all that judgment, wrongification, and thinking there's something wrong with us is powerful. I invite you to get really curious about that. Thank you so much for listening. There's nothing to do now but bring some awareness to how this is working out in your life. Listen regularly to experience longer and longer periods of calm. This has been the Calmcast with Claire Downham, Queen of Calm. Take care and keep listening.